Good, good evening, Facebook family and friends. Cathy Novicky here for Champions Over Cancer, and welcome to day 44 of my 90-day Champions Over Cancer Facebook Live Challenge. Tonight's going to be a little short because it's late and I worked. Even though I got out at 3 o'clock, it was very, very nice because I got a little nap. And but we're going away tomorrow, so I'm getting up like I'm getting up to work because we have to travel. And I think we're going to stay overnight. Yes, get a little getaway. But don't worry, I'm not going to break my streak because I'm committed to it. I probably should be committed, but anyway, one of those kind of nights. Okay, so it's just short and sweet, this one, and you're gonna think, how do you letting go? What does that mean? Well, I want to talk about letting go of what you can't control. And when you have cancer, you feel like you have no control. There's one of my dogs moaning. So if you have no control, how can you let go of what you can't control? It's a conundrum. But I have an example. It's from a long, long time ago. It is an example of a patient's experience. I'm not breaking any HIPAA laws. It's just the facts that I want to convey, and it will hopefully let you understand what I mean. I had a gentleman. He was in his early 30s. He was healthy. He had a good weight, he was not overweight. He exercised. He did not drink. He did not smoke. But he had a very, very strong family history of cardiac disease. And he had a heart attack at 30. Even though he did everything he could to avoid cardiac disease. His weight was good. He exercised. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. His cholesterol, I even think his cholesterol was fine, within the normal limits. And he had a heart attack. You can't control certain genetic predispositions. And you could do everything in your power, within your power, to try to avoid it and give yourself the best possible chance of not not having a heart attack, or in the case of cancer, being the healthiest that you can be. Good weight, exercise, nutrition, prevention, preventative medicine, etc., etc. But nobody signs up to get cancer. This gentleman didn't sign up. Oh, hey, Bridge. This gentleman didn't sign up to have a heart attack. He was doing everything he could to prevent having a heart attack. So when I say let go of what you can't control, in that case, in his case, he did everything he could in his control, but he just had to go with it and accept the fact that he tried everything and he still had a heart attack. So when you look at cancer, there are, I guess, even if you have a first-degree relative that has had cancer, you hear a lot about the increased percentage or increased probability that you, as a first degree relative, you're having a higher chance of getting breast cancer. But through when I had my two second and third opinions before I had surgery, they were saying, and actually the I went to Dana-Farber in Boston, and then I went to Hartford Hospital, and that's where I had my surgery at Hartford Hospital. But up at Dana-Farber, they were saying that the mammograms, when they first came out, the things they caught, bless you, Jared. So it was limited, and as the technology has evolved, it's gotten better, but mammograms are not perfect. And as I discussed last night, they're moving to ultrasound as a standard of care for dense breasts, et cetera, et cetera. So I just lost my train of thought. But this is really, what was I talking about? Mammograms and genetics. Oh, so even, if you do all that stuff and you follow the recommendations for getting your mammogram at 40, or what, now they bumped it to 50. Now, I was diagnosed at 47 and had mammograms prior to that. And now, at first, the recommendation for, oh, that was the descendants things. That's what we're talking about. Sorry. So I went up to Dana-Farber in Boston. This big, big research university, studies, all the things. And I think it was the oncology surgeon that I was questioning, mammograms, talking about mammograms, and she said to me, mammograms are like throwing a fishing net out into the ocean and hauling it in, and you find, incidentally, you find some cases, but they're like vaccinating everyone so that no one has chickenpox anymore, right? But they're not. There's just like the first wave, and like last night when I was speaking, I said how mammograms had been improved, and the earlier detection, along with the mammogram, there are ultrasound and other MRIs that can locate tumors and cancers at earlier stages. So they are catching more, but it's not necessarily through the mammogram only. I can't find the word to, that it's just a big safety net to try to catch. And they catch incidentals, but that's fine, because the death rate is, it's not going up, but it's where there's more cancers, but the death rate's not going up. It's because they're finding them earlier. Except in my case, they didn't find it until it was a stage 3A, and that's what we talked about, the type of cancers that grow very aggressively, very quickly. And my genetic testing was negative, and I had no direct relative that had ever had breast cancer or ovarian cancer. So because my BRCA testing was negative, I didn't have to do the hysterectomy, et cetera, because they are directly tied to each other, and it is strongly recommended that you have both. But what I've created now is a family history of breast cancer that I didn't ask for, and that no one, including myself, will ever know why that first cell mutated. I can tell you that where I work, that the work I do is very stressful, but it's what I do. It's, to a large extent who I am. And I can run a little hot in the stress and anxiety zones. And over the years, I've learned ways to adapt and adjust to get better at that. But who knows how much stress influences your body, your genetics, So I thought that example was really, really important, because this man, he was angry, but he wasn't like wild angry. And it was interesting, and so I asked him about it, because at the time we were doing the transports to facilities that did cardiac caths and bypasses, and at the time the stenting of the arteries was really just coming into its own. They'd have a cath, and then I don't know if he had a CABG, which is a coronary artery bypass graft, but I never did find out, going forward. I never met him again. But he said to me, I've done everything that I can to try to avoid it, because I know it's a very strong familial trait, and I could not run the genetics. And you see that a lot of times also in addictive personalities, where you have a family that you see generation after generation that has, say, an alcohol problem. And that's, I'm not really, it's not my big area of expertise, and I don't think there's any testing that says you have a stronger probability of developing alcoholism. There's no testing for that. It's just behavior, basic behavior, and behavior if you do drink. And it is a very strong drive. I mean, to break habits like that, people have to be phenomenally psychologically strong and to break it. So that's another thing, you have that predisposition in your family genes, but I don't think they've recognized the gene yet. But that's what I mean about genetics. It's like nature nurture. You can't control the weather. We can't control the weather. We can't control nature. So when you do everything that you can in your power to control what it is you can control, you need to let go of the rest, because ruminating on it is not going to change it. Ruminating on the fact that you had a family history of heart disease and now you've had a heart attack is not going to change the fact that this gentleman had a heart attack. And he was doing everything right. And so, yes, he was angry, but he said, well, I got here. I came in as fast as I could when I noticed the symptoms, and I know he did okay. It's just, going forward, he was so young. Going forward, the ramifications, the long-term ramifications of that. But so let go of what you can't control. I know it sounds just the opposite of yesterday when I was saying take control of what you can take control over, yada, 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 getting second opinions. And part of the way I took control is when my hair started falling out, I shaved. Everyone, we had a video party and everyone got swipes, and I shaved my head because I just couldn't deal with it falling out in chunks. And so we attached the shaving to a party and made it fun, because I would always joke to my hairdresser who said, when she'd say, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, whatever, let's, do whatever. It grows back. I used to say that to her. It grows back. And then here it's falling out. It's like, okay, so I don't say that anymore. It's growing back because it came in different, to the good and the bad. But so that's when you have to let go. And if you can find some way to inject humor into it, it just takes it down a notch. It's not going to cure it, but it's going to, release those endorphins that make you feel better. It's going to, if it was a room full, with people, it binds people together, the bonds that you're building to support each other through a bad time. And it just takes your mind off the bigger, badder picture. So if I've confused you, I'll apologize. But if you're wondering, letting go, taking control, step back and think about it. Like when I had reconstruction, it was 2.5 years after I had my mastectomies, and it was in December. It was Thanksgiving, and so I was trying to get everything as much as I could done for the holidays, because I knew that afterwards it would be a challenge. So the first reconstructive surgery, we flew. We had to. It was done in New Orleans, Louisiana. We were there for 21 days, and you'll learn how they say it. And I got on the plane. I can remember getting on the plane, and at that point, I turned to Jay and I said, I hand over all my control to you and the surgical team and Dr. Massey, and I'm okay with that, because I had done everything I could and was comfortable enough to let go. And I think it helps you physically as well as mentally get through a very difficult surgery. I was on the table for 10 hours, 12 hours. I had 4 surgeons working on me. I would have been charted as disoriented for probably all 4 days that I was there. They put me in the shower. I mean, are you serious? I was wrapped. I had 7 JP drains, and they put me on a stool in the shower, and the gal was in a wetsuit and washed me, and yeah, I felt better, but boy, that was it for the rest of the day. And I even get background music. But I mean, these people, and actually they're starting to advertise on Facebook. They are an annex of St. Charles Hospital in New Orleans, and it's called the Center for Restorative. Hey, Mal. It's called the Center for Restorative Breast something. Restorative Center for Breast Restorative Reconstruction, and they are amazing. And they are actually, I've been reading their little antidotes, and sounds like they've developed even more specialty or specialized interventions since I had mine. And when I had mine, they called it what did they call it? They called it breast reconstruction. Deep flap, right? DIEP, deep inferior epigastric perforators, which are your arteries and your veins that they move from your abdominal around your umbilicus, and then they use the skin as the skin, and then all the subcutaneous tissue to build the breast. But what they also do is, in the subcutaneous tissue are lymph nodes, and they identify, because they do this horrible test. If they had told me about that, I might not have done it. But to your lymph system and your arterial and your venous system doesn't connect at only the minimalist pieces. So they can't inject radioactive dye into a vein or an artery to have the dye go through the lymph system to see how it's draining. So what they have to do is they have to inject half a cc of radioactive dye in between each digit. So 10 digits on the hand, 10 digits on the toes. And it was excruciatingly painful. And then what they do is they put you in like a bone scanner, just pick up the radioactiveness, and they do you for, I don't know, however long it takes, but they do one immediately after you're injected, and then an hour later, and then you can go out, and then they do it at the second hour, and then at the third hour, and they want to see if there are spots where the lymph are not, I guess they lay over each other, and so that there's a break in the chink in the chain of the flow of the lymph. And it's very, very intricate. This is microvascular surgery. And because it is live tissue, they have to move an artery and a vein to both sides, one to each, to breast, artery and vein to each breast. So it's long, it's very intensive, and at the time, it was transplantation of lymph nodes was not a standard of care because they couldn't prove it or whatever. And so just by putting, deep flap breast reconstruction, it wasn't in there, but they wouldn't put, lymph transplantation because they wouldn't pay for it. Now, through a friend of hers who did the research, it is now a standard of practice. And I'm interested to see what her partners, what the people she works with, what they have gone above and beyond, because lymphedema is very devastating to the individual after breast surgery. I mean, for me, it's worse than anything, because it's much more limiting than scars or whatever. But and it takes several rounds before they get it right, because you have to follow a very strict regime when you come home. You need a surgeon at home to follow you so that they can watch how you heal, because this is long distance. You go to her, and you have to have a physician that follows your incisions. And I came home, I flew on the plane with 7 JPs, which are drainage, bulbs. And, at 30,000 feet, I was afraid that they were all going to explode. And then that would have been a really, really, really ugly situation. But I made it. And, but I also had complications from it. I mean, I lost, my hemoglobin hematocrit was down to 7 and 21. And that is extremely low. And they type and cross you for your own blood, for blood. And I basically begged for the 2 units of blood because I couldn't even get out of bed myself. Not thanks to that tummy tuck they gave me, which hurts like anything I've ever known. Why people do that voluntarily? Question their sanity. But I took the 2 units of blood, and that next morning was the morning I was going to be discharged, even though I had to stay in New Orleans for another 18 days or something. And I woke up and I smelt I heard someone walk by, and it smelt like they had a fresh cup of coffee in their hand. And the nurse in me went. So I felt, it was my 4th day. I was getting around a little bit better. I threw a Johnny coat on backwards, and I followed the smell. And I got towards the nurse's station, and these people are, let me tell you, they are serious. And they went, "What are you doing out of bed? And you're walking alone." Because all you have to do is, hit somewhere or fall, and the vasculature can be damaged, and you can lose the whole breast tissue because of that. So they want you to walk with people, and you can't be pulled up under the arms. You can't use crutches. I mean, it's intense. And so I said, "I thought I smelled coffee." And the gal that was taking care of me and had been there for the 3 nights or the 4 nights was the same woman, and she said, "Excuse me," she said, "Go back to your room. I will bring you a cup of coffee and anything that you might need to fix it up, and just be careful." They knew I was a nurse, and nurses are such great patients. So Jay had stayed with me for the whole thing and slept on a Murphy bed. Probably his back was out for weeks after that. But so I went back into the room, and I sat in the chair, which was okay. And she brought me all this stuff, and I'm sitting in this chair having a cup of coffee. The best thing that tasted. It was like the cherry on top of a sundae, because I felt so good. And he woke up, Jay woke up and he looked at me and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm having a cup of coffee." And I I took those 2 units the day before, and I would never have believed how much better you can feel when your H&H is low, your hematocrit and hemoglobin, and you get blood. So it's just, it's an experience, and there are some things you can control and some things you can't. I couldn't control what my blood counts were going to be, and they proactively type in screen and have units available to give you blood if you need it. Now, not everybody needs it, but I'm sorry, I did, and I took it. So what am I going to do about that? I had to just let it go. Give me the blood, this arm. Give me the blood. So that's what I mean. There are some things that you can control, some things that you can't. And it's just a perspective to give yourself a break when you've been doing everything right and something bad happens, or, you're the first, you're the trendsetter in breast cancer. It's, I didn't ask for it. I didn't say, "Oh, please, please give me breast cancer so I can lose my job and my house and, totally disrupt my family and blah, 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 blah." But what are you going to do? So try to, keep that in mind and step back and know what you can control and know what you can't, and give yourself permission to let go. So that rambled a little longer than I thought I would, but I'm getting tired, and so I will say good night after I yawn again. Oh yes, always the best host. So tomorrow I will be doing my Facebook Live on the road, and hopefully closer to the ocean and beach. Walking through the surf, playing tourist. But tomorrow will be Sunday, July 9th, and it will be day 45. Day 45, halfway through my 90-day Facebook Live challenge. So I thank you for all that are tuning in. I appreciate your support. Talk to people. Get the conversation going. Share, tell people about our links, about our Facebooks. We're on YouTube. We have a website. And, we're slowly getting this ball rolling. And it's what has been very eye-opening is that so much of my course from the beginning needs to be incorporated until through the cancer-free and into that population. I didn't anticipate that, so I'm learning along the way, and I'm sure I will continue to. So I thank everyone who has signed in, Bridget and Melanie, Mel, I appreciate it, and Jay, of course, listening in the corner to make sure I'm not saying something totally improper. So I hope everyone is home, tucked in, well, and safe, and I will see you tomorrow. And for good night, you could tell I'm tired. And for tonight, I wish you peace. See you tomorrow.